This episode of the Clearout was recorded on the 5th of March 2022 at home in Wicklow, and the bulk of the episode consists of a conversation with Dublin musician and actor Gavin McCaffrey. Gavin is an old friend of mine. We shared a Dublin stage together many years ago, performing in a very successful musical, and I use that phrase advisedly. Not musical, but very successful. Gavin and I have a nice chat about the creative life, and we hear about Gavin's background in performance, how he started as a young fella and has continued to stay in touch with performance, the arts, music particularly, as he's gone along and made that long journey through adulthood. He is part of a band called The Hum, and I will play out today's episode with a lovely one of their tracks, and in the description I will leave information for where you can find Gavin's work. And yeah, it's a nice conversation. I hope you enjoy it. We jump around a little, as is my inclination. So it's it's music, it's acting, it's actors, it's musicians, it's living the life, it's karate, it's wellness, and we have a good laugh while we do it. So I hope you enjoy what you hear, and I'll see you there shortly. Boom.
Ooh, not gonna change my mind, leaving the dream behind.
Hi, my name is Dara Clear, and you're listening to the Clearout. Welcome to the pod. You're in the group, you're in the crew, you're in the golden circle of listeners to this opus. The moldiness is back. It relented slightly at the weekend. There was one really lovely sunny day, maybe more than one since last week, but it is back with a vengeance. It is absolutely teeming outside, and it's cold with it. So hashtag blessed feels like it's in a vice-like grip of freezingness, coldness, iciness, with the wet. I have the stove lit in the other room, but I don't record in there because the acoustic isn't quite as favourable for my dulcet tones. These tones. Hey, how's it going? Can you feel me? Anyway, there you go. Women, happy International Women's Day yesterday. Well, it was by the time you're listening to this, it would have been a couple of days ago. How was it? How was that day for you? Did you feel honoured? Did you feel connected to your sisters around the world? Was it a good moment for you? Do you feel things are moving in the right direction? I mean, I hope we get to a place. I hope we get to a place in human society where we can get beyond gender, where we can get beyond all these divisions and sectionings off of identity. I just think there's other things going on that will never not be important, and never not affect all of us, regardless of gender or how we identify. And this is not to I'm not trying to throw shade on International Women's Day. I generally try not to throw shade on women. I feel like I honour women all the time. In fact, just to underscore my credentials, I just put up a poem on social media for my wife because it's her birthday. Happy birthday, wife. From the Hub. The Hub is at the centre of it all. This is the centre. Welcome to the hub. I put up a soppy... is it soppy? That sounds like I'm going to detract from my own work. That sounds like I'm going to stick a pin in my own sincerity. It's a poem I wrote a couple of years ago for my wife. I've edited it slightly, because I went back to it, and I have this terrible habit. I've had this terrible habit, in my poetic efforts over the years, where I found myself drawn to these kind of clunky framing devices, and I went back to this poem and I put one in on this poem, and I just was like, no, it's gammy. It doesn't work. It just feels wrong and lands in the wrong spot. So I removed it altogether. So you've just got the core of the poem, which was that was really what I was trying to express anyway. So there you go. It's a public display of affection, a PDA. Some people hate that stuff, but I'm like, feck it, do it anyway. I try to live in that space in terms of everything I put out in the public domain, and that started with the blog, the website, theclearout.com. It started with the stuff I put out there, and on it goes with the podcast and with some of the other stuff I put out there. I'm just like, just do it. Don't judge it, just do it. Express yourself, fool. So my poetry, I tend to go for the non-rhyming kind of poem. It's funny, my daughter was reading a kid's poetry book, an old one of mine from many, many years ago. And she was just in the mood. I'd been reading out some poems to her from a different book, I think it was. Anyway, she picked up this one and she was returning the compliment and reading out poems to me, and just picking them up blind and going for it. And she read this one poem, I think, for some reason I think it was a Spike Milligan effort. It was quite short, and she read it, and it was a poem that did not rhyme, and she read it to the best of her ability, which is considerable, and at the end there was a pause, and she sort of held the book away from herself and looked at me and just said, "That poem was terrible," which I really appreciate. I've got a bit of a history of throwing books across the room when I'm offended by what I've read, disgusted, enraged, indignant. And speaking of book throwers, I recently rewatched Silver Linings Playbook, the David O. Russell film from, is it 10 years old now? Was it 2012? Sort of a drama comedy. Jennifer Lawrence won her Oscar for that, didn't she? And Bradley Cooper. I'm sure I've spoken about that movie before. I've got a real soft spot for that movie. I don't think it's universally loved, but I think it works really well. And it is a comedy at the end of the day. I think some people were accusing it of just being a bit too reductive and simplistic and one-dimensional in its depiction of mental health issues and trauma and personality disorders and that kind of thing. But I really like it. Anyway, there's a scene in that where Bradley Cooper's character, who's just been released from an institution because of his mental health issues, and he's determined to reunite with his wife, whose lover he nearly beat to death. And in his bid to reconnect with his wife, even though there's a barring order, he decides to read her entire English syllabus. She's an English teacher, and he's reading A Farewell to Arms by Hemingway. And so there's a nicely edited sequence where he's manically consuming the book, reading it from start to finish into the early hours of the morning. And then when it finishes, he slams the book shut and fires it through the window, smashing the glass out the front of the house, and is just enraged by the ending that Hemingway chose for it. Anyway, there you go. And storms into his parents' room to go, what the hell isn't life tough enough? Isn't it tough enough indeed? And as we know, it's particularly tough for people in Ukraine at the moment, and the loss of life there is horrible. And the incidents, some of the incidents that I've read, I don't think you can put it any other way. They're war crimes. I mean, civilians are being shot. It's a really screwed situation. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that today. I did touch on that last week at some length. So, this week's episode is fundamentally an interview. The first interview on the Clearout podcast. So it's very exciting. My friend and former acting colleague Gavin McCaffrey came to visit, and we spent about an hour having a good old chat about the life of the artist. And for him particularly, he is a musician first and foremost, or that's what he's ended up focusing on most in his professional career. And yeah, it's a really nice interview about living the life and making a living from music at the how can I put it in a way that doesn't sound insulting or condescending? It's what musicians all over the world do. It's those jobbing gigs, it's weddings, it's public functions, it's ceremonies, it's the gig that pays the bills. So it's not filling 100,000 seater stadiums, it's not the big tours, but it's a very real and very valid and very creative life. And Gavin has a really good take on it, and we had a good laugh just talking about that, about the arts, living that way, about what makes good music. And I've got a couple of Gavin's songs to play. He has a band called The Hum, which he formed with his partner Sergio. Listen to the interview and you'll hear all about it. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I'll drop back in at the end to say farewell. So here it is, my interview. Very nice, fun conversation with the Dublin musician Gavin McCaffrey. Okay. We're going to call this interview is going to be called My Struggles with Technology.
I'm Dara's new engineer.
Excellent. Yeah, we just recorded some absolute gold, but the microphone wasn't on. So it's a very auspicious start to having guests on the podcast, and I'm delighted. My friend Gavin McCaffrey is here as guinea pig number one. So Gav, we're gonna just revisit. We're gonna revisit with the great skill we used to deploy as actors. Tell me about your drive. Tell me about your drive down
back
here
to
today.
that again.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful down here. It's absolutely gorgeous. It really is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
We're very lucky. We're
It
very lucky
is.
to be
It's
here.
shocking. It's like a little postcard or something.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Postcards from the edge.
Yeah.
From the edge of the abyss of middle age.
The edge of beauty.
Yeah. No, it's good. It is. I mean, hence why I refer to the place as #blessed.
Yeah.
And you were saying before that you had to use the old sat nav, the old GPS to get down. So paid no attention whatsoever to any place names.
No, not at all. Although I remember I did one gig in, I think it was Sligo or Roscommon maybe. At the time I had just got a new that the phone had changed, and that they changed the power source for the car.
Yeah.
And the phone, I was following that, and the last 20 or 30 minutes of this drive to this venue is just so mysterious, with no place names, hardly any landmarks. And I remember the battery on my phone went, and although I had a car charger, it wouldn't fit this new phone. And I had to go into a pub to ask directions, and I was just so stressed, thinking I can't phone anybody. I don't know anybody's number that I work with. I don't have it written down. And I went into this pub, and there was just a bunch of guys sitting around this table, and I went in already late on site for the start of this gig, and of course this was just hilarious to them, that here was this dub totally lost, And it was like, yeah, you go up here and you take a left and a right. And I was like starting to panic, going, oh my God, I don't have time for this joke even. I'm so late. And I had to I go up to the barman and get a piece of paper and then a pen. I start writing out. Okay, so I go out of here, I take a left. Oh my God. Yeah, and even with the old kind of A4 kind of book map in the car, it's still absolutely treacherous to find anything, especially at night. At night in the country when it's very dark and there's nothing you can no street lights.
The country roads at night time. No, that's scary terrain.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, it's grand if you know them, and even I know these roads. I grew up around here, so. You know, coming around them at night, you know when to kind of slow down, you know when the bends are coming. If you don't know the roads and you're rushing to a gig, no thanks.
Yeah, I know. I'm always very careful. Always very, very careful.
Good man. Yeah. So you're going to say here on record that you always stick to the speed limit?
Yeah, well, I do actually, because, you know, on a really serious note, I've had 2 pals who died in car accidents, and it's always... Yeah. Very young, and it's always been a lesson in kind of be so careful on the roads, because even you mightn't make a mistake, but and in one of the cases someone else I think had a heart attack in the vehicle, and that's why they collided.
Wow.
with my friend. So it's and just that thing as well of like when you, especially as a dad, you're like, part of my job is to get to this place alive and get home alive.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's
you know,
it doesn't get more fundamental than that.
Yeah,
part of my job is to stay alive.
Yeah.
Until you're not needed anymore, and then you can just shuffle off.
Never.
Who's that guy? Oh, that's me dad.
He's broke now. Leave him.
Yeah. Jesus.
Check his wallet there. See if he has anything. He's broke again.
Look. Yeah, far out. Okay. I remember one of my first not great experiences in a car. I hadn't been driving very long. In fact, my wife doesn't know this, so I'm not sure if I want to commit this to to the record. But I remember I was coming down a country road. I'd been at a friend's 30th birthday, and it had been like a paintballing session. And it was autumn. It was rainy, you know, wet roads, and I had to go in to pick up my wife in town. She was finishing a gig, and I was driving along this very twisty road, and there was a car in front of me, and I at a certain point I just said to myself, wow, that car in front is going really fast. And then, you know, there was that little kind of light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I guess I must also be going very fast. And I had that little moment of realisation. And within a minute, I came around the next bend and I completely lost control of the car.
Oh, wow.
And I just started skidding sideways along the road.
Wow.
And then turned. So I turned, so I went right over to the other side of the road, like facing the correct direction for the direction of traffic.
Yeah.
But if anything had been coming, I would have been a direct hit. And I ended up just sliding sideways up the sort of, you know, embankment, the side of the ditch. Yeah. So the car was just on an angle.
Oh, God.
Now it didn't roll over completely onto two wheels, and thank God I was able to just drive slowly off the bank, and I just went really slowly back the same way I just come, turned around and came back kind of shaking all the way slowly back down the road. But,
and a lot of it is caused by over correction, you know, by the fright. And a big thing for us as musicians is fatigue behind the wheel. Especially coming home late at night, it's, you know, the cruise control is great, it can also be dangerous.
That's because you have that sort of Bruce Springsteen mentality of giving every drop of energy into the performance.
But that's what I'm talking about. I leave it all there on the stage.
So you just got to go, like, getting towards the end of the gig, you've got to look at the band members and go, lads, I was gonna bring it back a notch. So I've got to save some energy for the drive home. And then everyone's wondering, why were the last songs so low energy?
Yeah, what's going on there? You weren't crying in that last
song. And you explain to people, I'm a dad. I'm
Excuse
a dad. I'm staying alive.
Everybody, please stop your dancing and celebrating. I want to make an announcement. I'm a dad, and I will be driving home very safely. Okay, carry on.
Nice. Yeah. Well, one thing, Kiara, my wife, when she's gigging, that's one of her lines at the end of a gig. She likes to say to people, you know, her little kind of public service announcement at the end of a gig is, now guys, remember, if you're driving home tonight, make sure you have a car. There's that one, never gets old. Trotting it out, old school.
That's good. That's quality.
Okay, so listen, tell me, you're a musician?
Correct.
And have been for how long? Put a number on it.
Oh Jesus, I don't want to. I'll just say decades. But I started playing trumpet, then guitar, then piano along the way. Baron, some harmonica, singer. But I was also as a kid, I was a Billie Barry kid. Yes, I was, and I loved it. I loved it.
Okay, so listen, we don't know who's listening to this. There are definitely some people listening to this who don't live in Ireland. And aren't familiar with the lore of Ireland. Yeah. So just break it down. What is or was a Billie Barry kid?
Billie Barry was just this absolutely brilliant lady. She ran a stage school, and her kids would be trained in singing and dancing and acting and performance. And all those kids were booked, most famously for the pantos that would happen in the Gazy and the Olympia every year, and also RTE and Christmas show. I was
going to say, they turned up on the late toy show, didn't they?
So all her kids were trained for that, and that was my earliest kind of big stage experience, was in the Gazy and the Olympia as part of that crew, and it was brilliant. And she was just so kind to me. She was really lovely to me. I was a very shy kid, even though I was into singing and performance and stuff. She was wonderful, and it was a brilliant experience as a kid to be paid to go into the Gazy and the Olympia for these stints and meet all these great actors and real top-notch performers, and it was
and they were like Christmas shows, pantos, that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
And you'd be into singing and dancing,
all that. You'd be part of the stage and the crew, or the like village scenes or whatever. Yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it, and it was my first experience in there, in the Gazy where we kind of worked. Just a brilliant, what would you say? Just a brilliant theatre to work in. It was a great experience,
Yeah. And tell me how much you enjoyed working with me.
Let me just activate my acting skills. No, it was great. Jesus, I had such a great time during that show. The Wiremen. Brilliant time during that show. And I still think about it. There's this famous scene in that where we had a tug of war, and it always comes into my mind. And you were playing the opposite crew. I was on the other side to you, wasn't we? We were like enemies or something.
Were we? Or were we the same? I thought we were both the country guys.
I don't think we were, because I remember so the director told us, when you're having the tug of war scene, maybe one or two of you should take off your shirts and kind of fling it, kind of real, like, oh, let's go to war. And this quickly became a game of, let's take our shirts off, roll it into a ball, and see if you can nail someone in the head on the other side of the stage. And this was
very professional.
The greatest crack I've ever had. And I remember nailing you one night, and it was just, I had to turn my back to the crowd. I was laughing so hard. It was brilliant.
Nice. And your performance didn't suffer at all. So that show, just to clarify, that show was written by the late Shay Healy, called The Wiremen. And basically Shay had this idea to write this musical about the rural electrification scheme in Ireland that took place. I guess it was the 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And he kind of pitched it. It was almost like a West Side Story scenario, or even like Oklahoma, farmers and cowboys. So you had the electricians were this kind of Dublin crew who were heading down to the rural west of Ireland, and they'd come up against the very suspicious local lads. And Gavin and I, we shared a dressing room, but his memory is that we weren't on the same side of the fence in the show. I always felt he was pulling against me. That was the tug of war. But it was actually, I think that show it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I remember Shay he seemed particularly pleased with it.
He was a lovely man.
May he rest in peace.
He was a lovely man.
So listen, tell us, what have you been doing? What have you been doing lately then, musically?
Well, so to make a living, I play in a cover band. I guess you call it an event band.
Yeah.
For commercial events like parties, wedding events, and that's a brilliant way as a musician to make a living. and also to really practice your skills and work with people who are, you know, sometimes much better than I am, and it's fantastic as a way of improving and growing, and and I just love playing, you know. I just love playing. I love playing with people who are better than I am, and people who are really fabulous, you know. And a great way to make a living as a musician, and kind of invaluable to work with different players. And I get the opportunity to switch between instruments, to go from keyboards to trumpet, to guitar, to singing. So yeah, it's
what's the lineup in the event band or the wedding band?
Well, the idea is that it's based on what the client needs. So you might have a 4-piece that's just the main instruments, like a guitar, bass, drums, and keyboards. But you can add brass or a female vocal, depending on what the booking is. If it's a corporate event or a birthday party or a wedding event or whatever it might be. So there's different teams involved, and it depends upon what the client is looking for, you know. But it's been brilliant. I've absolutely.
And you have your go-to kind of crew that you go, right, lads, we've got a gig.
Kind of, yeah, exactly, yeah, and different teams, and but there's always kind of different combinations of teams involved as well. But yeah, that's really it. And there's a kind of there's always songs being added, and there's a kind of sense of learning this or learning that, and trying new material, and what will work for the event, and what will fill a dance floor, and what might not. And that's also quite an education, is that songs that you would say, well, that's a great song, but you might perform that and realise, oh, this doesn't work at certain events. It just doesn't work. It's quite fascinating to me, you know.
And like the people, like say for a wedding, like maybe the bride or groom or whoever's hired you, they'll go, listen, you have to play this song or you have to play that song. They'll hit you with their requests beforehand.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it's a funny one where sometimes they might really be determined to have something, and you might look at that and think that's really not the right place for that song. However, they're very adamant that they want it there
because it's their song.
But for example, that they might want it in a certain place in the set where you would think to yourself, that's not a great idea. But however,
it's going to drop the energy on the floor.
Kind of. It's what the client wants, so therefore, sure, here you go.
And the bride and groom, you know, it's what they want, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, if they want to ruin their wedding dance, they can. That's their prerogative. So that's that. That's like so that's the life, isn't it? Like that's the life of, you know, the musician just trying to, okay, I can earn a crust doing this.
Yeah, and I would do daytime stuff as well. Daytime, you know, you could do a funeral service, a wedding ceremony. I don't teach really anymore. I did some teaching, but mostly now it's just all performance. Yeah,
right.
Very happy. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
And what about you do original stuff as well? Yeah,
I do. I'm a songwriter as well, and I've always done that. Very difficult to pay the bills as a songwriter, but I've always done it and just always loved the creative process. I think that's probably like singing would be kind of easy as such, but learning the instruments has been challenging. That's hard, you know, to learn an instrument and to play it well. That's hard work. But the creativity and the singing is the thing that would just be the easiest for me. Yeah. You know, and that environment of being in a studio or being wherever and writing, and either, you know, writing down a lyric or else coming up with a chord or a melody or sequence or whatever. That's kind of that's the buzz. That's what I love the most.
Yeah, nice. And that kind of collaborative spirit, I suppose, as well.
Exactly.
No, it's interesting what you're saying about getting a lot out of playing with people who are better than you.
Yeah,
that's probably the default position for you, isn't it? No, look, I'm only messing. But I was thinking, certainly, you learn so much from being around people who are operating at a higher level. If you're open to that, I mean, sometimes that can be a challenge to people who maybe their egos can't withstand that sense of, oh man, I'm not where I'd like to be, and they're better, and it turns into something weird. But I think if you're coming from a place of humility and openness to learning, and also gratitude, I suppose, to kind of go, oh, this is great, like, watch what that person does, look what she's doing on the keys, look what he's doing with the guitar. Because I was thinking from a martial arts point of view, like, it's always been a thrill to me to train with really good people who, And see, that's the thing. Like, what the point I'm trying to get to is that like there's also like a shared sensibility where fundamentally, you know, in any walk of life, but like particularly if you go into kind of the arts, and this can happen in martial arts as well. Funnily enough, you get the ego. You get the people who are, you know, they're good, but maybe they're not really letting you in.
Sure.
They don't really want to share.
Yeah.
They don't want to share the space. They don't want to share the stage. They don't want to share their skill set. They want to keep that kind of aloofness or that removed, kind of keep themselves a little bit kind of ring fenced. But like I found, when you meet people who are relaxed with their gift and comfortable with their talent, with their capability, and they too have the appetite for learning.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of travels both ways. So, okay, maybe you're younger, maybe you're a bit less experienced. You know, I can probably still learn something from you. Let's see where we can jam here. And I mean, jam's a bit of a cliched, naff kind of word, but you know what I mean. Like I'm thinking, like I've got a friend from karate who we didn't train together very long. We trained together for a while in Melbourne, and we just had this great connection. And he had some amazing skills as a karate practitioner. But like we just kind of met in this place of how can we make each other better? Let's get out on the floor. Let's, you know, brilliant. Show me how that works. And for me, like that's a creative exchange. Yeah. Like that's getting into a zone of, you know, and you know, in terms of karate, that can be a bit of a risky zone. That could end up with you getting a smack in the head. But you're going in, and the thing is, the shared love is the love of the thing. Yeah. It's not like, let me show you how amazing I am. It's like, let's do this thing and let's see where it's going to take us. Yeah. And then it's a moment of liftoff. Sure. And that's the excitement, and that's the creative reward, I suppose. Yeah, it's funny what you were saying there about people. Like, I went to the College of Music, I went to the Academy and did my grades there in piano. Sometimes I think to myself that what I'm doing now is the greatest education, where you just sit in with someone and it's shocking how good they are. Yeah. And that is such an education. It's like, oh wow. It can be occasionally depressing. No, I don't really get that way. I used to kind of get that way, but I don't now. Now it's just quite kind of, it's just so exciting. Yeah, nice. to hear someone playing an instrument and go, oh my goodness, that is amazing. How did you get that good? And it would also like you talk about the creative process with karate, is that as a musician, then if someone is so complete in what they do, there's probably less for you to do. You don't have to overfill. If I'm on keyboards, I don't have to trash away. I can leave space. I can take my hands off for a phrase. That's good, man. Because I'd go, let's bring it back to acting for a second. So I'd go, that's you recognizing you're in service of the song. Sure. You know? Yeah. So it's not like, hold on, I want to get in on this and let me show you what I can do, you know, with the ivories. And I think, you know, ultimately, you know, it's a perspective, and you know, it's how I would think about, like, you know, getting on stage, being in a play, whatever. If you're doing some acting, it's like, well, ultimately, my role here is to serve the story. You know, how can I make the story better? How can I serve this other character? How can I have this interplay with these actors that'll elevate the material? Sure, yeah. And it's, you know, and maybe that's counterintuitive. I mean, I know it's funny enough. At the moment, I'm reading William Goldman. Oh yeah, the Hollywood screenwriter who wrote Adventures in the Screen Trade is the name of the book, and he wrote it around 1982. And it's funny, my mother gave me a copy of that book when I was probably 14 or 15, maybe a little bit older, and I just, you know, it was too sophisticated for me then. I just wasn't that interested. I was just looking at very conventional movie books with lots of photos of movie stars and old movies, and that was kind of my bag. But I've returned to it. I don't have that same edition my mother gave me, but it's been interesting reading his kind of breakdown of the industry at that time, and it just popped in my head because he was talking about, you know, a Hollywood star is always going to want to look good, and they're not willing, like, you know, they'll go, they're not going to do a part that they look less attractive, or if it ruins the mystique. And so he was being, you know, like the book is regarded as this great education and this great insider knowledge expose of this is how the industry works. This is how vain and self-centered these actors you love are. Now he's not being snidey, he's not being bitchy. He's just going, look, this is they're protecting their brand, they're protecting their image, and if anything you'd probably think it's even worse nowadays.
Yeah, when you said that about how they have to kind of dominate certain scenes, there's a great story about Brando doing a scene where he has to. The scene really belongs to his co-star, this lady. I can't even think of the film, but he has to hand her a sheet of paper. Initially, he started doing it in such a way that she gave out that he was stealing focus from a scene that was very much her scene. She has to receive this, and it's about her. And she gave out, and she said, "I'm not having this. She's stealing focus here when it's not his scene." And they had to reset again, but the next time he had to do it, he scrunched the paper up into a ball. And so when she said something like, "Give me the paper," he took it out into a ball and just started slowly unfolding. And it's such a brilliant kind of example of how to bring the focus back to that. And there's another great one I saw in the latest Bond movie where Daniel Craig is coming out of the scene and he's walking across the street, and his co-star is a gorgeous looking lady wearing this amazing dress. And I was just imagining that everybody will be looking at this lovely lady, and he does this great thing where he just gets his cuffs, he draws his cuffs down on his arms, and it brings the focus back to him. And I was just thinking, I bet you he's aware that the audience is just looking at this gorgeous lady, and this is his way of bringing them back to him.
Was that young Cuban actress?
Yeah, she's gorgeous. Yeah,
Anna.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Funny, I was talking about her recently enough on the pod, and I went blank on her name. Yeah, she is. She's very funny in that sequence. Actually, she's brilliant.
She's fantastic. Yeah.
But it's funny. There's another famous story, isn't it, about one of the old Irish stage actors. I don't know if it was David Kelly or Cyril Cusack, but they were notorious for trying to keep the focus on themselves.
Yeah.
And there was they both kind of fit because they both had that similar kind of quality maybe as actors. But basically there was some scene on stage, and the actor in question, he was upstage, and basically the focus was meant to be on the actors who were downstage. That was where the action was happening. That was where the dialogue was taking place. But he went upstage and basically, lit a pipe.
Brilliant. And
then pretended to burn his fingers on the match.
Fantastic.
Just so he had a bit of business, a bit of comedy business,
Yeah.
You just go, oh lads,
marvelous.
Really?
Another great story, two dames in British theatre, and they had this huge kind of rivalry. And one of them said, "Well, I'm going to upstage you, not even on the stage." And it was, "How can you do that?" And as she left the stage, she got a glass of water that she was drinking, and she placed it down right on the edge of the table, so that the glass was only really half on the table. And of course, the entire audience for this next monologue of her co-star is just looking at this glass, going, "Is that going to fall? Is that going to?" And that was her way of completely upstaging her co-star. I thought that's incredible.
Yeah, it's just a petty nonsense that actors can go on with.
Yeah.
Jesus, no, Brando was notorious though. He was he was just pure kind of mischief.
Yeah.
For all that kind of talent he had, and how photogenic he was, and what he brought to the screen, which fundamentally changed kind of screen acting.
Sure.
But I remember seeing him in interviews, and he was always kind of subverting the expectation of people who were interviewing them, and he'd flirt shamelessly with female interviewers. And it's pretty old school. I don't know. You kind of go, here, listen, you just catch yourself on. Stop carrying on, for God's sake. But that was who he was, I guess.
Sure.
That was his mode.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe his talent came to him so easily, and all the fuss that was made about him, that I think he was just like, here, let's just take this back down to a place that we're not going to take this all so seriously, are we?
Yeah, I wonder that level of fame though. you know, I wonder what it does. I'd love to know what it does.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But no,
well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
No.
But like it does, you wonder if it does really twist your sense of reality, your sense of entitlement. I mean, these people are kind of treated like with red carpet everywhere they go. Sometimes it makes me laugh when I hear things like, and they were so nice. And I was thinking, of course they were. Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
You know? They get a round of applause everywhere they go, you know.
God. I don't know. I mean, it's you know, a bit of resistance, a little bit of grit in your shoe. Like
sure.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Character building,
of course.
You know?
Look how much character we have.
I know. Years of grit.
Too much character,
yeah,
I'd say.
Years of grit. You know, when does the applause start? But here, listen. I'll come back to your original music in a second. I was just going to ask you though, in terms of your music, and you know, multi-instrumentalist. Which instrument, if I say, you know, if you were to pick up one of those instruments that you play, which one would you go, this is where I really sit in a comfortable place, this is where I can kind of express myself?
I suppose it would be the piano. Trumpet is a different thing, where if you're kind of if you're arranging a song, you'll have great ideas about brass. If there's a brass hook or a little phrase, as a trumpet player, you kind of understand that kind of role in, say, in a modern pop song. Like guitar was the first thing I came to, and nothing kind of brings a room together on a social level like a guitar. It's fantastic.
But you can't really blow into it like a trumpet.
You can try, but you won't get very far. But no, keyboard, I suppose. Yeah, piano. Definitely, in the sense that you can kind of your fingers can kind of get to everything. Yeah. Whereas as a guitar player, you really have to build the craft to play certain things, and very much so on the trumpet. But on the piano, anybody can put their hands on keys and
it sort of gives up its treats a bit more easily, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that, fire.
Yeah, fire. And here, listen. Tell me who, like, if you were to think, like, you know, who do you like to listen to? Like, does that change over time? Do you have like old favourites you go back to again and again? Like, you think trumpet, that guy; piano, this person.
Yeah, sure. God, as you've asked me that now, I'm struggling to think. I can tell you the last thing that I really became kind of obsessed with was that there's a musician who plays on The Tonight Show for Stephen Colbert. The musician is called John Baptiste, and he's
John Baptiste,
and he's now doing gigs himself apart from that show, and soundtrack work as well. But he has a performance on YouTube of Blackbird by Paul McCartney.
Okay.
And it's just gorgeous. But yeah, you're always trying to find things that really hit you in a certain way.
He's extraordinary, that guy.
Yeah.
He did the soundtrack for Soul, didn't he? Yeah,
exactly. But along with Trent
Reznor
and his Atticus Ross.
Yeah, Atticus Finch. That's Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard him be interviewed, and he's just like, he can't keep the music in. He's just bursting with.
He's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really
crazy,
really fabulous.
crazy talent.
Yeah,
right. But he doesn't play the trumpet, does he? He's
a
piano guy.
He's a piano guy.
Yeah.
So trumpet, I don't know. I actually got a trumpet lesson off a friend of mine the other night, Aidan, and he is just. He's brilliant, and it's so funny because we had to go down to his garage and sit in the back of his van to play because he's a young daughter in the house.
Yeah, it's loud, isn't it?
It's loud, and he is fabulous. Great musician, great kind of tone and style.
Tone. They talk about tone a lot, don't they? With sax players, trumpet players.
Yeah.
Tone is the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the sound. A lot of people will say that it's not so much about. Sometimes you might criticize someone for their playing and say, "Well, I didn't really like that approach or that little turn, or maybe that technically wasn't correct." But very usually, people will go, "But the sound."
Yeah,
the sound was so damn good. You've got to forgive all those other.
Because you think of, like, you know, the kind of the jazz legends, like particularly John Coltrane and Miles Davis. And the tone is just, it's so distinctively theirs. And it's interesting, you can go and find this, you know, if you can get HBO There's a documentary about Kenny G, right?
Okay.
And it's just fascinating. It's kind of excruciating. Like, he's phenomenally successful, but he's kind of this jazz light. He's kind of like elevator jazz. He doesn't seem to have anything that you could describe as soul. I mean, this is how I experience his music, and it's not like I'm a fan. I'm aware of him as this character who's been playing his jazz for whatever 40 years, and is kind of hated by a lot of jazz heads and jazz purists, because his thing is so lacking in kind of feel, and yet he's phenomenally adept and unapologetically himself. And I remember in this documentary, which he's very happily participating in it, and talking about his career and owning this kind of controversial status he has within jazz. But I think someone, like a commentator on the documentary, was saying, like, Kenny G was like a gateway artist to people into jazz. But like, often it's people who are not into jazz and have no interest in the jazz kind of legacy or history. So I mean, and then his tone, like, he does this bloody thing. Like, one of his kind of trademark kind of bits in his live performances is to just do this relentless circular breathing over one note on his on his sax. And it's this, for me, it's the equivalent of, if you think of the old kind of 70s, kind of mid 70s, late 70s, rock guitarists who are like, playing these epic solos and are staring at their own hands like they can't quite believe how amazing they are. It's like, oh my God, am I really playing this? I'm so amazing. I'm so lost in my amazingness. Which is kind of like, it just takes you away. Hold on, dude, what's this about? Yeah. Like, is it as masturbatory as that? And Kenny G, that's his thing, where he'll just kind of go, and he'll just hold it like for 5 minutes. Yeah. And these people, you obviously have no real relationship with music. So it's like, oh my God, look at Kenny G. He's playing that note for 10 minutes. It's like, really? Is that what we're here for? This, this doggy jumping through a hoop.
Yeah, it's a good angle. I have another pal, fabulous trumpet player friend called Michael, and he'll talk about that as well, as sound, tone, and the necessity for what you don't need and what you do need to play a phrase, and what to exclude and what to include. It's a funny one at that level though, where I remember seeing Harry Connick Jr. and he's such a master musician.
When was that? I would have been at that gig.
Oh, really?
RDS. No, I saw him at the Point of all places.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Did he have a big band? Or?
Yeah, big band, yeah.
That would have been good.
He was sensational. His band were out of this world. But I remember after he played, he was doing a solo with this guy, or they were doing trading solos with this trombone player. And at the end of it, they both turned around and kind of shaked their butts at the crowd. Yeah. And this got the biggest round of applause. Nice. But it was all part of like the showbiz, and people love the silliness of it, Yeah. So there is this thing, I suppose, that
again, like, talk like Harry Connick Jr. We're talking about like an abundant natural talent, like child prodigy level. Like, he was making music and making albums from a very young age,
and ranging all incredible,
And then like also multi-instrumentalist, jumping onto the drum kit, all this sort of stuff. And also, my impression was, and I was a big fan of his back in the day, someone who took a bit of stick for, being a little bit too mainstream, for being a little bit jazz as pop. I mean, but then, I don't know, like, you get all that kind of snobbery around, around genres, I suppose. That's not the blues. This is the blues. That's not jazz. This is jazz. But that said, Kenny G can get the fuck out of here.
It's funny that I remember meeting a musician who said that to me about he did all original work, and I didn't think he was I wasn't a fan of what he did. But anyway, I remember him saying something to the effect of he asked me, you know, what gigs I had that weekend, and I had two commercial events and two party events, very happily so, out making money and working. But he said something to me like, "Oh, I suppose we all have to do what we have to do," type of thing, as if that was beneath him.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the musicians who were on that stage that I was going to be working with, and I was thinking, these are the same guys that will be booked to go and play with whoever you could name.
Yeah.
You know, in Ireland or the UK or Europe. Yeah. These are all the same pool of musicians who are just available. There's a date. Are you free? Yes, please. You know what I mean? And then 2 weeks later, they're on tour with so and so. Do you know what I mean? So, I think that's a really kind of, I can't get on board with that attitude. You know? Sure.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's you know, it's practical, it's pragmatic. It's, you know, when Chiara used to do a lot more gigging, you know, before we moved out to Australia, like, you know, Chiara was primarily making her living as a gigging musician here in Ireland, and I used to be very envious because I was like, damn, you know, like, okay, she's not doing gigs. Oh, I love doing this cover gig. I love being in this pub with loads of people getting pissed, playing these really great, you know, doing great sets. But, you know, at the same time, I was like, yeah, but you're making a living from your talent. You're making a living from your skills. Yeah. And similar to what you said earlier, you're kind of getting to practice. You're getting paid to practice. Absolutely. You're getting paid to kind of improve on the piano, getting paid to improve on the guitar, getting paid to, you know, try out some new material to play with your phrasing on that song. And I was like, man, I'd love to be able to just earn a crust, earn the, you know, bulk of my living from acting gigs, but it doesn't exist in the same way, I guess. No. And I mean, you know that as well from having been an actor too. Yeah, that's a strange game. I just have to laugh at sometimes at the interviews in newspapers where they say things like, you know, he was a reluctant star, and I was thinking, reluctant, do you know? Reluctant? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? How many people would be like, you know, anything but reluctant to rip your arm off for that, opportunity?
It just makes me laugh, and the guy is just sitting there all moodily like, I'm not sure if I want all this, you know? Yeah, which is always, you know, that's you know, that's always spoken from a position of having it. Yeah, of course, yeah. So, you know, it's that, and then that puts it into, like, you know, wanting what we don't have. Yeah, it just makes me laugh, though. It's just so, like, now I've got it, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's just such a privileged position. But I sometimes, you know, I'm just a big fan of, you know, gratitude and realising how lucky, you know, I am, for certain. Oh my God, so lucky and blessed to be doing this and to make money. And even as actors, you know, so many actors that I went to school with or studied with, and some of them with just really fabulous talent, and they never got paid work. Yeah. You never. And I realised how lucky I was to do one gig after another for a certain chapter where I got paid to go out and perform on stage, or small TV roles or whatever it might be. You just realise how damn lucky you were. I was just I'm sure I was talking about this recently on the podcast, just getting acting work and knowing you were getting paid. It just always felt like the greatest fluke. Oh, I was like, oh wow, brilliant! This is amazing. You know, how jammy is this to get a gig, get paid, and you're doing this thing that you love to do, and it's fun, and you're avoiding anything that resembles conventional work. And so it's amazing. I'm toying with the idea of throwing my headshots around again and seeing if I can pick up a little bit of work. You know, just to do it. Just to add to my wife's condemnation. It's like, oh my God, come on. So I had to laugh. I went out to do an audition recently, or during 2020 or 21 or something, and I was just laughingly, you know, took up to the tape. I was like, kids, don't worry, it's sorted. I'm an actor again. Everything's gonna be fine. That's it. And my wife would laugh hysterically here. No, that's one of my favourite gags. I used to say it when we were, you know, I'd buy a lottery ticket, and I'd say to Chiara and Maeve, I go, hey guys, just remember this feeling. Remember this feeling of being poor, because in 6 hours' time we're going to be multi-millionaires. Brilliant. You know, it's the same idea. You know, brilliant. I'm going to get this gig and we're going to be on Easy Street. Brilliant. You know, I love that. Just remember what it was like to be small. Be grateful for this poorness. You're about to say goodbye to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm keeping an eye on the time. I know you're on the clock a little bit. Tell me then about your original music. So what's been going on? What have you been writing and playing lately?
I started a project with a buddy of mine from Aikido. I studied Aikido for a while, and that was 2010. We met Sergio Milani. He's a lovely guy, real gent. He's Italian and he's based in Dublin. And we kind of just started initially with my songs, and then we started writing music together and kind of worked away at different little projects. And then one of the first things that we did was a soundtrack for a short film. And so on our kind of Spotify playlist, there's a song called Freddie Go Round and 3 instrumental tracks, and those are from that short film. But that was the first thing that we did together. Yeah, nice. And it just was very unexpected in the sense that when the guy said to me he's written this little short film, before I'd even thought about it, I said, I can do the music for that, and myself and my writing partner will do that.
Yeah, nice.
And then thought to myself, can I?
That's it. Just get in the door first. Worry about what you have to do afterwards.
Yeah. So we just got in the studio, and it was very unexpected because it just became we had great chemistry, great writing chemistry.
Yeah, nice.
And so enjoyable to sit down and create together. And I thought, this is fantastic. This works.
Yeah. What's his instrument?
I guess you could say guitar. Really, he would be a real master of the guitar. And he's also he's a fantastic kind of engineer and producer, and like the tech, as you know from your own work doing. But it's a huge part of it. It's a huge part is being able to.
I've got the most rudimentary grasp of the technical requirements.
Well, that's where we all kind of start. But he's really really evolved with that stuff, and he's got great patience with this isn't working on, in technical things he wouldn't get it. He'd be very patient and kind of
whereas would you think, if that wasn't there, would you just kind of burst on and go, it'll be grand, we'll get there, or
sometimes
or get stuck?
Yeah, kind of like but I think that it's an invaluable quality in life. I think is patience. Sure. And being calm. And I've been around so many people, to myself to an extent, is that you have impatience with something and think, forget it, that's not working, that thing there, or I'm not going to do that now and forget about it. But to really kind of sit there and not have an emotional reaction to say something technically that isn't kind of working.
So that's, for me, like when I hear that, I kind of go, it is about detachment. To go, I'm passionate about this, I love it, I want to do well, but if I'm too enmeshed emotionally, if I feel it's too close to me, I'm going to live and die by every little ripple, every little bump. So to be able to be detached and go, do you know what, this isn't working.
Yeah,
we need to just roll back, or let's take a pause and let's try and approach it from this angle, and maybe. Then you're going to kind of, get the result you want.
Yeah, it's about that pro attitude as well, where you're not chasing the thing around the room. If it is a technical issue, or if it's a writing issue and a creativity issue, it's not to kind of it's not to be dominated by the challenge of it, but more to kind of just to sit, hold, and change angle, whatever it might be. It might be to do with, if you're creating, it's to do with a new instrument, it's a new angle, it's what if we change the key of this, what if we remove that instrument from this, now what have we got, all those things. But I think once you get into that headspace, the whole thing is much more pleasurable, as opposed to just a better way to work, I think.
Which is maybe not so objective driven. It's more like, okay, the process, let's go on the journey. Maybe. Sure. I don't know. Sure. I'm not a musician, so.
Yeah.
And then just tell me then, there's obviously a big difference if you're writing a song. If you're writing a song that's kind of lyrically driven, like a conventional pop song. Would that be fair? Is your genre as an original musician, would you say?
Yes.
Where do you sit?
This project and the band name and the home, I mean, like that is very much between Sergio and I, and so for this band as such, is it pop music? Some of it is the song we're mixing right now. Things are going to change. Is very much, I think, pop and very commercial, very accessible. The the first, the Freddie Go Round track and that soundtrack is very much like something like a Peaky Blinders.
Okay.
Very kind of bass drums and gangster type of mood, you know.
Which was presumably appropriate for the short movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other track that we have published on Spotify is called Boy, and that I think would be, it's not pop, but it would be I guess commercial rock, you might call it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's always hard to define what it is.
Sure. And so for Boy, then, does it start with lyrics? Did you have a lyrical idea, or did it start with like the music? Or, you know, so
yeah, a little bit of both. Again, it came out of a kind of playing along in the studio. We kind of look at each other like tennis players and say, "Have you got something?" "Yeah, I've got something. I've got this." Okay. And then you start going with it, and then I was just a bit like kind of just diving off. You kind of just start singing and trying to find, where am I going with this, and maybe start coming up with ideas. So it's usually a bit of both at the same time, and then to finish it off lyrically, I would kind of go back over everything and say, okay, well, this line, take that out, this works here, but it would usually evolve at the same time for me.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty organic then. I suppose it just depends. It depends. Probably varies quite a bit from musician to musician.
Yeah.
So, tell me the name of the other song, Freddie
Go Round.
Freddie Go Round, and then there's a couple of instrumental tracks as well with that.
Yeah, they belonged. They were like an EP, if you like, and they were part of that soundtrack to that short film. And it was kind of a film noir type soundtrack.
Okay. Cool.
And so yeah, if I had to pitch it towards a TV show, where would it sit or something? I'd say Peaky Blinders. It would sit with that.
Yeah, you said that.
And then Boy would be more, I don't know how to classify Boy. It is very, very melodic and quite rock, but also it's a ballad. It's like a rock ballad, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll play that one at the end of the show, or at the end of the interview. And you've got, I think you mentioned you're working on something else at the moment. A song called Things Gonna Change, which is possibly our most kind of optimistic and catchiest song we've done so far. Very upbeat, and it's just being mixed at the minute. So yeah, it's really exciting. It's just such a pleasure to kind of create and then be able to publish these things, and it's amazing. Sure. And so, obviously now with the pandemic, restrictions being finally lifted, you're out gigging again. Very much so. Yeah, at commercial events, and then the original events is a slightly other field that we also have to kind of that's a different almost it's a different world altogether. Sure, one that I haven't kind of been in for a little while. I've been of the past 2 years for certain. So, but yeah, it's exciting just to get back out there to play and just to be out there playing and obviously making money again from gigs. We did our first show back with the party band was in it was up in the north of Ireland, but when we started, and it was a great band that night, great guitar player, and when we started, there was such an explosive reaction in the room. There was girls up on tables. Yeah. And I remember just looking at it thinking, this is one of the most wonderful moments of my life. It was like 2 years of, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't, and it was like pulling back the ring on a can of like, a can of happiness, a can of euphoria. It was just so rock and roll. It was so rock and roll. It was brilliant. People just going, give me. It's like like teenagers listening to Rock Around the Clock the first time. Yeah, it was. Just like, what is that sound? It was like live music. It was like, I need this. Inject me with this at top volume. It was brilliant. Yeah. Gas, bloody hell. Yeah. And so, tell me then, you're part of apart from the lovely Sergio, you're part of another creative team because your wife is in the arts as well. Elaine Murphy, actor and writer. She wrote most famously a play called Little Gem, and at the minute now she has just finished adapting Circle of Friends for the Gaiety Theatre, and that is starting in the middle of April. Right, the Maeve Binchy. Yeah, the Maeve Binchy novel, Circle of Friends.
which we mentioned earlier before we went on air, before we started recording. The movie was like from 94. Chris O'Donnell and Minnie Driver.
That's right.
And Alan Cummings, was it I think the Scottish actor?
I think you might be right. Yeah.
He was kind of the Sleveen sort of character in it.
Yeah. This is the first time the play's been adapted for stage. And Elaine was thrilled to be asked, and I think it's a great fit. I think it's a great natural fit for Elaine's style, and
nice.
It's a perfect.
I remember seeing Little Gem. I think that was that must have been around 2009. So I think I remember going to see it in Tala at the Civic, and just loving it. I just thought it was so good.
Oh, that's great.
So funny, so witty, so moving, so real. Just they felt like very authentic characters, and it was just. I mean, it's when theatre's at its best, it's just kind of you just go on the journey so effortlessly, and there's just a great sort of relatability, even though the characters were all women. But I just felt, I believe these characters. I believe them, and I was in tears laughing, and then I remember it was quite moving as well. There were other tears, just quietly, on the sly.
Is that my karate instructor crying? No, I wasn't crying. There was something in my eye.
And so that must be good. I mean, like, of course, my wife's a musician, so I mean, it definitely helps, doesn't it, when you're a creative person to know your partner gets it.
Absolutely.
That they have insight and maybe a bit of sympathy.
Absolutely. It's crucial just to understand each other, and also to support each other and give advice in terms of, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that, and Elaine, actually, there was a great crossover recently where she wanted 2 songs for she had lyrics for one for a project, and then she had melody and lyrics for the other, but myself, Sergio, wrote the music for one of those songs where she just had the lyrics, and then for the other one, then she pretty much had the whole thing written herself, but we just put the music in behind that. That type of thing is really exciting and really incredibly rewarding.
Nice. It's special to work together.
Yeah.
And you've got a couple of boys at home as well, don't you?
I got 2 boys, Oscar age 8 and Elliot age 10.
And so what are you going to say to them when they turn around and go, Daddy, I want to be an actor, Daddy, I want to be a musician? Are you going to go, no effing way?
Well, here's the best part, is that we try to get them to do auditions because they're two little characters and they won't do it. And then I'm constantly practicing, and I'll say to both of them, and they're both musical, I'll say, what do you think, you want to learn some guitar? It's like, no way. And they're just mad into their sports.
Yeah, gas.
So it's fascinating to me.
We get a bit of that resistance from Maeve as well. We work on her constantly, but she is a character herself, and definitely you can see the little actress there. You can see she's got good musical instincts. She's got she's physical, she's sporty. But like I keep saying to her, do you want to come in and do some karate? I'm teaching a class.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, that's not my thing. Like, oh really? That's screw you, pal. And Kiara's like, come on, you want to play some music? No. Although we think we're getting into the piano now, which is that's quite exciting.
That's great.
Look, I want to ask you about one other thing before we wrap up. I know you got to go somewhere now. Don't laugh. It's nothing funny. This is a serious question.
Oh, sorry.
Right?
Okay. Gotcha.
This is a serious question. No, I'm not winding you up.
Okay.
So obviously we've just come out of this long, period of intense kind of compromise, pressure, altered reality, and you kind of go, look, it's tough enough trying to live a different life, trying to live the creative life at the best of times. It comes with compromise, it comes at a cost, it comes with sometimes that feeling of, am I mad to still be doing this, feelings of possibly other people just don't get it, they think I'm a loon for doing this.
Sure.
You throw 2 years of a pandemic on top of that. My question is, like, how do you keep yourself well? Like, what does what does wellness and kind of keeping yourself on track, what does that look like for you?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. Well, I'll tell you, I had a huge kind of watershed moment in 21. I'll try and give you the bullet points real quick. But I got COVID in, was it July 21, I got a very strange side effect, which nobody else seemed to really get. It was pins and needles.
Okay.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
Hands and arms, legs and feet. And the long and short of it was no doctor seemed to understand what it was, where it was coming from, or when it would stop. And it kind of sent me down this kind of on this journey to investigate how can I get rid of this.
Okay,
And
down
so-
the rabbit hole.
So when you talk about wellness, the first thing I thought of was Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Cold water therapy, meditation, and then the other thing was to do with just diet. But since I started on that journey last year, I have been in the fittest and physically and mentally I've ever been.
Yeah, right.
Through excluding certain things in my diet,
Okay.
and then exercising, getting into the seeds, the freezing water,
Good man.
cold showers.
That's my cup of tea. Yeah.
cold showers. You start with your warm shower and you finish with your freezing cold, and it is like doing 10 espressos.
Yeah.
And it will completely reset those feelings of the blues or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's, and since then I a lot of the old anxiety about as artists, there's never any security.
Yeah.
But you kind of realise as well is that there's no security for anybody.
Yeah.
It's kind of an illusion.
I agree.
It's an illusion. But what you can control is yourself, your own mind, and I have to say this is the what would you say, the happiest and most peaceful I've been ever.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a result, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a total game changer.
How long do you think it's going to last?
Probably till next week.
Yeah. That is huge. I mean, that your partner benefits, your children benefit. Like that's that positive ripple, where everyone knows, shit, he's actually in much better form.
Yeah.
He's healthier.
Yeah.
And it brings the calmness.
Oh,
and it brings a kind of a serenity.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and it brings the fitness too in terms of being able to weather, things that might have just made you go, oh, for God's sakes. Previously, you're like, it's okay.
Nice.
That's all right.
So that's increased resilience.
Yeah, but beyond that, almost like it's fine. A bit more like kind of surfing.
Nice. Very
As
zen.
opposed to I have to try and how am I going to battle this? It's like, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna go with this.
Okay. Nice.
So,
Very good. Well, that's a very positive note to end things on.
You like that?
Yeah, beautiful. Listen, man, great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
And well, good luck with it all. Good luck with life.
And you too. And
The project.
Thank you for having me on. It's your podcast. It's been
Good.
brilliant.
Listen,
So well
man.
done to you.
Thank you very much. You're officially now. You're the first interview guest. So
I'll be back next Saturday. What time next
yeah. No, same time
Okay,
again.
great.
I'll start you off with the coffee. We'll make sure the microphone is on right from the start. All right, man. Take it easy.
Thank you
Talk
so
to you soon.
much.
All the best. Good luck.
Now, there you are. Make of that what you will. That was me talking to Gavin McCaffrey, and what a lovely chat it was. So thanks to Gavin for making the trip down to #blessed, and blessing the podcast in his own way. So you can find Gavin's work at his website, which is www.thehumofficial.com. That's thehum official.com, and you can find his tracks there and find out what he's up to. So and I will play out today with one of his tracks. I'll introduce that just as I sign off. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there now. Thank you for listening. Keep coming back and participating in this exchange. I give you my words, you give me your ears. That's it. And I welcome your feedback. I welcome your response at any time. You can catch me on social media at the Clearout podcast on Facebook, the Clearout Podcast on Instagram, the Clearout Podcast on YouTube, and the Clearout 2 on Twitter. And you can email me here at theclearoutlive@gmail.com. And should you want to support the podcast, which is an independent podcast, should you want to support it financially, you can do so. You can use the supporter link, which you'll find in the description of the podcast, wherever you listen to it. Or you can use Patreon. You can use patreon.com/theclearout. And I would welcome any contribution you feel you could give. It's all welcome. It's all contributing to this project, this venture, this output, this creative thing. And let's support the artists. Let's support creative people. It's good energy. It's going to a good place. Okay, that's it. I'm out. So, I'm Dara Clear. This has been The Clearout. You're still you. And to finish today, I am going to give you the track Boy by Gavin McCaffrey and The Hum. All the best. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.
I don't have the answers, child. I don't have it all figured out. Wiser man than me have tried. All they seem to find is their self-doubt. Will they drive all night for you? Will they stand up in the dirt and fight for you? I see you question yourself. You say it's okay, but it's not okay with me. You say that they don't mean it. You say it's alright, it's not alright with me. Will they drive all night for you? Will they stand up in the dirt and fight for you? Will they give up the heart in their chest? Will they die for you tonight if that's what they were against? Would they die for you tonight if that's what they were against? There'll always be a river to cross. There'll always be a mountain to climb. Don't be scared, boy. You got this. No need to street lights are